going?
Don't be a Dora.
Is that a place?
We're going to 2 Kings. Chapter
Kings.
19.
19.
Verses 15 through 21.
Wow. And 32 through 36.
Yeah, but that's not important.
It's the Bible, of course it's important.
We're technically not going there.
We are. We're going.
Maybe.
Yep.
So, once again, we're back with a prayer study thing, and we're still in 2 Kings. We started that
last week.
Last week, yes.
Wednesday.
Last week.
Yeah.
Time flies.
It
doesn't seem like it was that long ago. But anyway.
Well, 4 days. 5. 4 days ago. Wednesday.
8.5.
Anyway.
12.
So, yeah. So, we talked about Elisha before.
We did.
And he had 3 prayers, so...
Yes.
Yeah. But this one is
honestly,
not
that
Elisha.
one should have kept you covered for a couple weeks, but here we are.
Yeah.
We're back again already. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's Sunday. So this one is Hezekiah. Oh, of course, you had to yawn.
I just woke up
that.
in case, just so y'all know.
Yeah,
so
it's
there's
like,
going to be a lot of yawning for me.
It's
I'm
like
still
3
asleep.
in the afternoon. He just woke up.
For the 4th time today, I think.
You should not wake
Third.
up. You shouldn't wake up so many times in one day. That's not healthy.
All right, so verse 15. Let's start this off.
Do we need any background? Yeah, we'll probably need a little bit of background.
Yeah.
So
I always forget about the background.
yeah, because Sennacherib, Sennacherib. I don't know. Anyway, he wasn't a cherub, that's for sure. If he was a very evil cherub.
There's no U.
No, you're right. It's an I in English, anyway. So the king of Assyria had sent his army down. They had already conquered Israel, the northern tribes of Israel, Samaria, as they're often called. And now he has made it all the way to Jerusalem with his army, and the army has surrounded the city. And they're
there's a song about that.
There's a song about...
It's like, surround us, O Lord.
Yeah, I think that's different than being surrounded by an enemy army.
Yeah, very little bit different.
Yeah. So anyway, the situation here is pretty dire. They're surrounded by this enemy army. You're going to yawn twice. I don't think you can't yawn
You're
twice.
talking. It's making me sleepy. I'm sorry.
So they're surrounded by this enemy army, and what are they going to do? And different kings have handled this different ways when they're attacked in the past. Some try to go to Egypt to get help.
This isn't the one where they get saved by the lepers, is it?
Was this the lepers? It might
you can
be.
You can look it up. I'll start reading.
I can't look it up because I don't have my Bible on my phone. Because I don't have my phone. I'm Bible-less except for what we have printed out right here.
This man comes to a Bible study video that we're doing without his Bible on him.
We already had the thing printed out, so I didn't think we'd need it.
You always need it. All right. There. You look, I'll read. All right. And Hezekiah prayed before the Lord and said, O Lord, the God of Israel.
Wow, you're really having trouble today.
I literally just woke up, so it's gonna be
saying that like
it's gonna be kind of rough for this one. All right. Enthroned above the cherubim, you are the God, you alone of all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth. Incline your ear, O Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, O Lord, and see, and hear the words of Sennacherib, which he has sent to mock the living God. So right here in this very first section, I don't have the Hebrew in front of me, so
If you did, you couldn't read it?
The thing I'm about to talk about, I could read.
Oh, okay.
I don't know specifically which words are used here in the Hebrew, because just like in English, they have multiple different words that mean the same thing like we do. But one of the Hebrew words for here... isn't it Shema?
for here, like here. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were talking like here. No.
No.
Yeah, the
Am I thinking
Shema.
of Shema?
The Shema
Yes.
from
So,
Deuteronomy. Hear, O
Shema
Israel.
Shema is a word that they have that means hear, and I just saw hear in this section of the prayer. It made me think of it. That word for hear, we think of just hear as in like, just listen to me. Listen to what I'm saying. I need you to understand me and pay attention to me for a second.
This was not the case of the lepers.
Oh, okay.
That came back in chapter 7.
Ah, gotcha.
I could not remember
So,
off the top of my head.
like I said, it's gonna be a video, you guys. But anyway, so their word for hear, Shema specifically, doesn't just mean, hey, listen to me. It means listen and act. It means hear me and do something about it. So sometimes in prayers when we see where it just says, hear me, O God, hear me, listen to me, that kind of thing. Or in the section in Deuteronomy, which is where Shema is used, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God, and you shall love the Lord with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. That word here doesn't just mean, hey, listen to this is interesting. It means you need to listen to this and you better follow it. This is something you need to not just hear, but you need to follow through on this and do what is being talked about.
And this is Shema.
It is Shema here.
Yeah.
I figured it would be. It makes sense with the prayer. But yeah, that's just an interesting thing to look into. Dad and I have been talking recently about how different cultures define a similar word differently. And if you're using a word here in America, or if you're using it over in Britain, it can mean entirely different, opposite things.
Well, even here in the United States, I mean, different generations use words completely differently.
And I feel like that's something that we don't understand when it comes to Bible study. We're just like, oh, this is the English translation. It's been translated into English from Hebrew or Greek, depending on the Old or New Testament. And so everything that is in here is exactly the way the Hebrew or Greek meant it to be. When our definition of here is different from the way that they use the word here. And for certain words, phrases, things like that in the Bible, we need to understand when they say such and such, they don't mean it the way we think of it. They meant it a different way. And for us to get the proper meaning of a section, we need to look at it the way they would have looked at it, not the way we look at it today. And that's an important thing to understand.
Yeah, cultural context is sometimes as important as the grammatical context.
Like when Joseph and Mary were looking for a place to stay, they weren't going through Motel 6s and Holiday Inns. They didn't have those. It was different. It was no. But anyway.
Yep.
Truly, O Lord, the kings of Assyria have laid waste the nations and their lands, and have cast their gods into the fire. For they were not gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone. Therefore they were destroyed. So now, O Lord our God, save us, please, from his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you, O Lord, are God alone. So here Hezekiah sets up an interesting contrast with the army in Israel and the areas that the Assyrians have conquered, where he says, listen, they've been through everywhere. They've been destroying things. They've been burning gods. And the reason for this, God, is because those gods weren't real gods. We know that you're the real God. So prove to the entire world that you're the real God and save us, because none of the other gods were able to do anything about this army that's coming through. But we know you can. So prove it to them. Prove to them that you're the real God and you are worthy of everything, that you have the power to do this.
Yeah, and I mean, they're in a great difficulty right here because, Assyria has been just killing everybody along the way. They've been destroying. Nobody nobody could stand up to them. Nobody could defend against them. And so Israel has already fallen. The northern tribe, 10 tribes. Now you've got Judah, which is just 2 of the tribes left, and they're smaller, they're weaker, they're less powerful in every way imaginable.
Yep.
They don't have a big army. They don't have any special weapons or anything like that. So the only weapon that they have is the Lord. That's all they can do is turn to God. You've got to protect us because we can't protect ourselves. And it's amazing. So many times we see in the Bible that God is their protection instead of, well, we've tried everything else and now we'll come to you as a last resort.
Yeah.
When people tried it that way, he was usually like, go off into captivity.
Yeah.
When they came to him first and said, you're our God, you're the only God, save us.
Yeah.
Because nobody else can. Then he responded.
Yeah.
Many times.
And that's an important one to notice because I feel like oftentimes, whether we mean to or not, God kind of comes a little bit as an afterthought when it comes to our lives, when we need help, support, a defender. Because as Americans, we kind of have a tendency to rely on our own power and be like, "Oh, I'm tough. I can take care of it. Maybe a little bit rough for a bit, but I can get through it."
Yeah, and we think our government and our military and they're that's where our strength is.
Or down here in
our wealth
in the South, we have a pretty strong sense of community as well. It's like, oh well, me and so we'll get through it. And
my family,
they'll help me out with this.
Neighbors,
we got
friends.
This. While it's good to have those supports, it's good to have those connections, and it's good to be strong enough to take care of some things yourself. I'm not belittling that. God should be the first one you turn to. And if you turn to him later, even though you may really need him, it may not work out all that well for you.
Yeah, he may have decided, you didn't think you needed me, so go ahead.
It's one of those things like if you had a friend that only came to you when things were terrible, but during good times just disappeared, what would you think of that friend?
Fair
think of it the same way with God. If you're only around when you absolutely need him and the situation is dire, but when things are going fairly well, you're only struggling a little bit from time to time, that's when you ignore him. How do you think God feels about that?
Yeah.
It's just common sense.
So Hezekiah comes straight to God in the first place.
Yep. So while I'm reading, can I have you look up that one, see if it's Shema as well, in verse 20?
Okay.
Then Isaiah the son of Amoz sent to Hezekiah, saying, Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, your prayer to me about Sennacherib, king of Assyria, I have heard.
It is the same. It's past tense, but yeah, same.
So then he uses the same word there, a sense of Shema, which is him responding again. It's not just, okay, yeah, I listened to you. I heard the words that you were saying. I heard noise. I
listened,
hear you,
understood,
I understand you, I paid attention, I have accepted it, and now we're going to do something about it. And we're getting to what God's going to do about it in a second here. This is the word that the Lord has spoken concerning him. She despises you, she scorns you, the virgin daughter of Zion. She wags her head behind you, the daughter of Jerusalem. Now, I'm sure that fits with context, but we have a couple verses, quite a few verses.
Yeah, we skipped a little, there. But yeah, she's basically just saying, well, he's saying this is the message to the king.
Yeah.
That, Jerusalem, the children of Israel, are just, they're laughing at you. You can't touch them. They're not scared. They despise you.
Oh, so the him there is Sennacherib?
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was response directly to Hezekiah.
No. This was the
And I was like,
response to
that
the king.
seems kind of rude.
Because the whole reason Hezekiah is coming to God is because the king of Assyria has sent him these letters saying, "Hey, you know, we're gonna conquer you and all this stuff," and God's just saying,
And so God sends
no,
a
you're
letter
not.
back.
Like you're not setting foot here.
Yeah.
You're not. I mean, and he goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, he really answers it.
Here's the rest of God's response to Sennacherib. Not
Yeah, because there's
again, he's responding to Hezekiah, but this is mostly to Sennacherib, where he's just like, no. Therefore, thus says the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, he shall not come into this city, or shoot an arrow there, or come before it with a shield, or cast up a siege mound against it. By the way that he came, by the same he shall return, and he shall not come into this city, declares the Lord. For I will defend this city to save it, for my own sake and for the sake of my servant David.
okay. So, yeah, the section in there that we skipped was basically just God bragging to him, saying, "Hey, have you not heard all the things I did? Didn't you hear about what I did to Egypt? And didn't you hear about when my people brought them into Canaan? And that's basically, and then basically just saying, you know, you're raging against me, but let me tell you something. You better back down because I'm fixing to do something to you. I'm not, you know, you but he just like, no, you're not. And then he tells the children of Israel, you know, yeah, you're fine. Everything's going to be fine. You know, you're going to eat the crops. You're going to be doing good. Everything's going to be okay.
And the next couple of verses shows that God's serious about this. These aren't just empty words. He's not just putting on a big show for the king of Assyria. Verse 35, and that night the angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. And when people arose early in the morning, behold, these were all dead bodies. Then Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and went home and lived at Nineveh.
Yeah,
that's a pretty amazing one.
Yeah,
that
I mean, one angel.
You think about the power of the angels sometimes, where you had one angel is able to kill almost 200,000 people in one night, and no one noticed.
Yeah, and they woke up the next morning and they're like all dead. Yeah, that would be
quite frightening.
Yeah.
No wonder he left.
And a real question here of whether when it says the angel of the Lord, whether that is
just an angel,
angel of the Lord, or an angel of the Lord. And you're often confused by
the question of the angel of the Lord is a big one in the Old Testament. Some people think it was Jesus. Some people think it was an archangel.
Like
some
Michael
people think it was a representation of God the Father. Some people think it was just an angel.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to tell in some places.
Sometimes to tell.
There are some times where it's just like, oh, that's God, because he speaks with all the full power of God.
But I think when that's the case, I think that's the second person of the Godhead. I don't think it's the Father. I don't think there's any indication that the Father ever came as an angel or an angel form, like the Son will in the.
I think the closest you get to that is. Well, that wouldn't be able to be the Father either.
Even like when they're leading out of Egypt, that's the angel. He said, I will send my angel.
I was thinking about
like
the section where he eats with Abraham.
Yeah, that's
and I just realized
Lord,
that can't be the Father, because when the Father's talking to Moses, he says, "No man can see my face and live."
Yeah. So it's only the Son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Jesus.
the only person that has ever seen the Father was Moses, and Moses only saw his back.
His back.
Because as God said, no one can see my face and live. And you think about the power of that kind of being, that he is so powerful that even if he he just has so much power that we cannot see him and survive it.
Yeah, it would strike you dead. Yeah,
It's an amazing thought.
Well, even you think about the Israelites just hearing his voice. Just hearing his voice on the mountain.
From
they were
like
so
when
scared.
He's up on top of the mountain, they're down
at the bottom of
and
the
like a ways away from the base of the mountain, for that matter, because they weren't allowed to touch the base of the mountain, and they're that far away from it, and it's still so loud that it
so
scares
scary.
not just like a small group of people, an entire camp.
Yeah,
filled with
all the leaders,
soldiers.
Everybody.
This was like,
and they're not just scared. It's not just like, whoa, that was kind of scary. They're so scared that they come to Moses.
We never want to hear it again.
Please,
you go talk to him.
You talk to him. Just tell us what he said. We don't ever want to hear him again. And yeah, it's an amazing thing. And then on the other hand, with Elijah, who's gets this, there's the earthquake, and then there's the still small voice.
Yeah.
And it's just it's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
With Elijah. Did you say Moses saw his backside or Elijah?
Moses.
So what about when Elijah was in the cave and he came and God came and there was the earthquake and then all that stuff and then
Elijah didn't see anything.
He didn't see. I guess he just saw the results of God's presence there.
Yeah. And I think it is interesting in the section where Moses does see the Father. He's like in a cave in a crevice or something.
Yeah, he said,
and God says, "I'll put my hand over the cave entrance,
so you don't
and
see me."
And it's just like so
weird.
Not only can we not see your face, but you also have to give us extra protection,
like with your hand, so we don't.
Blows my mind.
And it's amazing stuff.
Crazy.
Now this is an amazing thing historically.
Mm-hmm.
In the annals of the king of Assyria, he writes about his conquests. Of course, kings, and they're always bragging about everything they've done. And he's bragging about how he's done this, conquered this nation and that nation, everything. And then he comes to a section where it just says, that he's got this Hezekiah, the king of Judah, caged up like a bird in his city of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And, he's this helpless little bird in a cage, can't do anything, and I'm fixing to conquer it, I'm fixing to destroy it. And then that's it. There's no follow-up. And what we find, Sennacherib goes back to Assyria, and we didn't read that far, but once he gets back to Assyria, his sons kill him. He doesn't, and that's he did, but he had all that. He's like, and he doesn't tell what happened. He doesn't tell why he didn't get Hezekiah.
I mean, to be fair, if you were like a mighty king with a giant army against this little city, like, I'm. Plus, you think about that. Just having an army at your disposal, waking up the next morning, getting ready to capture a city, and realizing that around 200,000 men of that army have just died.
Yeah.
Like, they just died.
Well, I mean, okay, so to put this in perspective, since March of last year, and this is now September, so that's 12 months, and then March, April, May, June, July, August. This says 18 months. In 18 months, COVID has killed a little over 600,000 people in America, in the United States, in the whole country.
So
and you think about in one night, nearly 200,000. That's inconceivable. The most we've had was
Sicilian.
Well, I mean, sometimes things actually are inconceivable. The most we've had in one day of deaths from COVID throughout our entire country of 300 million people has been like 4,000 in a day, or a little over 4,000 in a day. It was like the most in one day. Yeah. But can you imagine?
It's crazy.
I mean, 185,000 in one night.
I mean, if I was
You just
that
wake
king,
up and they're all dead.
If I was that king, I'd walk away.
I'd get out of there in a hurry.
Oh yeah.
And
I'd be like, I could be next.
I'd be looking behind me to see if anybody's following me.
Yeah.
Is there anybody? If they coming? And what happened to
And because you also like, it doesn't say specifically in the text, but you got to think about this. This was an army. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They knew what they were about. They probably had guards posted. They had a sentry, a watch, running rotation. No one notices anything suspicious at all. The watch changes throughout the night like normal, and there's nothing odd happening. And then the next day, it just drops like a bomb.
Yeah,
That would be especially frightening.
well, and it doesn't explain how he struck them down.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, it doesn't. Was it? I mean, did he chop off everybody's head? Did he stab everybody through the heart?
I do like that it specifies he went out. Like I don't know why those two words are in there. That's an interesting one. It's like, all right, I have come out from heaven and I will now begin the dying of you. There you go.
Yeah.
We're at 85 minutes. This has been a long one.
We are not at 85 minutes. You really need to learn your
all right,
numbers.
I'll stop this before it gets there then.
But yeah, that's an amazing story, and
It is.
And you see Hezekiah's faith in God. You see he's a good king, and then we're gonna we'll deal
Hezekiah
with another
makes me
prayer from
sad.
Hezekiah next time. Well, I mean, it's like
He really does.
he's.
I'm
I'm not terribly sad about Hezekiah. I know there were some failures toward the end that. I mean, I don't feel like he really failed himself so much as he just wasn't successful, certainly in passing on his faith to the next generation, which is always sad.
That is a rough one.
But there are so many people who are faithful to God themselves, and yet they cannot pass that faith on. That next generation just doesn't get it. And that was that. I mean, you see the same thing, with David, and then Solomon doesn't carry on to the end, and then Solomon's son is, it's completely gone. It's just such, and it is sad, but at the same time, you feel like Hezekiah was a good king. I mean, he did what he needed to do to help his people.
He was definitely one of the better ones.
Even though he did have some troubles, some problems at the end, at least he wasn't as bad as, we got like Joash,
Manasseh.
Manasseh's kind of the opposite because he's evil all throughout his life, and then repents at the end.
He does get better.
I mean, well, he couldn't get much worse. I mean. When the Bible says the streets were running with blood,
you could be his son. That would be bad.
Yeah, his son
Ammon.
was pretty bad.
Ammon was. Those were rough 2 years.
Yeah, I just it's difficult to know. I like what
everyone seems to complain about leaders. Like that's just a thing. But like if you ever have a problem with people over you, be it president, bosses, whatever, just be glad that they're not like, having you like burn your kids alive.
Well, that would be bad, yes. It's
Welcome
interesting
to Judah.
In 2 Chronicles when it talks about this same story. It says Sennacherib returned home humiliated.
He's just like, I'm out.
And then he entered the temple of his god. Some of his own sons struck him down with a sword.
Yeah, that's a song.
Yeah, he's, but the Lord delivered him. I mean, it just.
He was serious about it too.
Yeah, and the other thing, Sennacherib's army, his servants were out there, yelling at the people. Hey, we know, don't trust Hezekiah. He can't save you. Don't trust your gods. They can't save you. All this stuff. They're out there yelling this
And
constantly to the people.
we see this prayer from Hezekiah, and we see what it was able to accomplish, what God carried out from it. But you kind of wonder, with the taunting and the army right in their doorstep, what were the common everyday people of Jerusalem thinking?
Yeah.
Like, was their faith as strong as Hezekiah's?
Well, and then, like I said, you've got the people yelling at him. Don't let Hezekiah fool you. None of the other gods have been able to protect their people.
Yeah.
And then they're even saying, and they don't understand. And the people who were truly worshipers of God would have realized they were being, that they didn't know what they're talking about. Because they were saying, they're hollering out, don't let him say, the Lord our God will rescue us. Isn't Hezekiah the one who eliminated his high places and altars and told Judah and Jerusalem you have to worship at one altar?
That's funny.
And he's like, y'all just really don't get. Yes, he did
funny.
that because that's what God said to do. So the people that were really true to God would have recognized that as, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, even then, you're always going to have some people doubting. And I think it's comforting to know that despite, I'm sure, having people doubting that God was going to take care of them, God still took care of them.
Yeah.
That's...
Well, because, and again, it's like when going back to way back when we talked about Sodom and Gomorrah and Abraham talking to God about Sodom and Gomorrah. If you find 10 faithful people, it's amazing what just the faith of this one man Hezekiah. Now, he was the king.
Yeah.
He wasn't just Joe down at the corner store. He was the king of the nation. But his faith, his trust in God saved the entire nation. And certainly all of Jerusalem, especially. But the whole nation would have been under the power of Assyria, just like Samaria fell, if it hadn't been for Hezekiah having faith in God. If he'd have tried to fight it on his own, if he'd have tried to call to Egypt for help or to some other nation for help, there was no other answer. All right. Well, this is a good, normally Sunday night, 30 minutes. That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not. I was thinking about that.
Yeah. So,
in case you wonder why the video is longer, this is Sunday night church,
our
basically.
Sunday night Bible study time. So, but we didn't get to have any songs. So, oh well. Yeah. Normally on a Wednesday night or something, we'd have a 45-minute class or something.
Yeah.
40 minutes.
Somewhere in there.
All right. Well, hope that this, encourage us to, have the faith like Hezekiah when we're under pressure, when we're surrounded, maybe not by a literal army, but there's so many things that are surrounding us. I mean, it could be a literal army.
Just thinking Afghanistanis. That's
I was thinking about some of the. They talk about a church and they were on the phone with someone from outside the country when the soldiers came in and killed them all, and they were like, we're not going to deny Jesus though. We're going to trust him even, and that's the thing. Even if he doesn't always rescue.
Yeah. And
it may not rescue physically, but there.
I don't want to get into the Afghani situation too much on camera, but it's one of those things with the way the world is, and with us pulling out, where it's like, how much of the stuff that you see on places like Facebook is true, and how much of it is just people coming up with stuff, because people are always going to come up with stuff. Let's be honest,
it's kind of sad that they do that way.
And for those in Afghanistan that are having a tough time, and I'm sure there are many, I feel for you, and
they're not watching this.
No, they're not. I can't imagine what that would be like, but at the same time, like, I gotta wonder how bad it is, and how many of those accounts are accurate.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be good news.
It's not
for them over there for a while. Anyway, so but think about, even no matter what circumstance you're in, the Lord is there, and even if there's not a physical protection, a physical salvation, the spiritually He's never going to allow someone to conquer us physically. We are the only ones that can, and spiritually. We're the only ones that can conquer ourselves spiritually. We're our own worst enemies about that. We're the ones that give up and give in to temptation and sin and fall. It's not anyone else forcing us or overpowering us.
Yep.
All right, so let's consider those, and let this part of Hezekiah's life at least be a good example to us, even if not everything was.
And do some good hearing in your own life.
Yeah, listen.
And don't just listen, act on it.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's telling you something, there's a reason for it. And chances are there's something that you need to be doing in response
When
to
you
it.
hear that truth, accept it and live it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the thing? Live not by lies.
Yeah.
Live by the truth.
Yeah.
Don't live your life according to lies.
Hope you all have a good week.
All right.
And we will see you
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.